We watched a lot together watching episode 5, and I want to get into so many things, but before I do have a theory for what happened here with Genosha. We got Genosha, we lost Genosha. How did all of this go so wrong? My theory is those $10 apples, what was going on with those? Magneto was right, more like Gambit was right, you know what I mean? He called that. So friends, wow, where to even start? I am honestly, like shaking. I'm so excited about this episode. I saw some people commenting about this before I even jumped on today who were just like, Amanda, when you watch this episode, and I was like, I can't look, I'm trying to avoid spoilers. I managed to avoid spoilers all day, but everyone was going off. So I knew the episode was going to be crazy. I got home, I watched it. The episode was nuts. Okay, I already kind of said a spoiler in the intro, but just fair warning, we're going to really be talking about spoilers in this, guys. So like, get ready. Buckle on up because the spoilers are coming in a galactic wave over all of us. Wash me in the radiation waves and give me Fantastic Four superpowers because we are talking spoilers. So let's start off with all the death. I mean, we lost Magneto and Gambit, and I was not expecting to go there. I was not expecting it to go this hard, this fast. I wasn't sure with Genosha if we were going to go the route that it went, sort of like E for Extinction. We'll talk about that a little bit more later, but we did. And to see these sacrifices, I cried so much in this episode. I am such a crybaby. Gambit going out like that and sacrificing himself to blow up that Sentinel was... It's making me cry right now just thinking about it, especially after, they're playing with our heartstrings in this episode, especially just after Gambit and Rogue come together and reconnect, and of course we're all happy to see it. I knew it was going to be coming, and then they take him away from us like that. The fact that it ends with Rogue saying, I can't feel you, and then we get that sad outro music. Oh, man. That's hard. The fact that Magneto promised to protect Leech, and then in the end, he can't. And we even get Magneto saying a bit of German. That, broke me. I am broken. And apparently, it's only gonna get worse from some things that I've heard. We'll talk about that as well later on, but dang, yo. Okay, so... while there is a lot of death and a lot of loss, clearly, the thing that I also love about this episode... I mean, do I love the death? I do kind of love the death because it's so meaningful. I love all the epicness that we get getting there. I mean, the fight scenes in this, the action, the way the powers are used, freaking brilliant. Just perfect. Getting to see Rogue and Gambit have that synergy in their fighting together is just amazing. Getting to see Magneto go off and basically use a train as a whip. I didn't know I needed that in my life, but I needed that in my life. I needed that. I mean, just so much of what we see here is so amazing and so cool and so exciting. And once again, the animation is flawless. I think this might be my new favorite animated episode. Still close behind it though. I think it's 3 for me. 3, I just really love those astral plane fights, but dang, this was good. Dang. What the heck? Of course, the epicness, the epic fights, all these epic moments. You know who kind of gets robbed here? I literally recorded a short about this character that I haven't put up yet, and I'm really sad because I saw that Dazzler was going to be in this episode, and I was so excited. For those of you that are new, hello, welcome in. I'm a big Dazzler fan, so I was really excited Dazzler was going to be here, and I was getting flashbacks to the Hellfire Gala of 2023. When Dazzler was going to be recruited to the X-Men, and I was so excited. I was like, oh my gosh. And I literally got a copy of Hellfire Gala 2023 that is Dazzler on the cover. I bought the Dazzler cover. I was so excited. Only to find out everyone dies. And just like Hellfire Gala 2023, Dazzler does not make it out. She also dies. We barely get to see any of her. We just get to see a little bit of, lights, and then dead. The disrespect. And in my short, I'm talking about how cool she is. So I'm totally prepared for whenever we drop that for people to make fun of me and say that Dazzler's clearly not OP because she died. But look, Dazzler is OP, and I will not accept this disrespect, Marvel. Stop it. However, although there is a lot of death in this episode, there's also a lot of smooching. A weird amount of smooching for what we for all the death that we get. But I guess that is to heighten the death that we get, so it makes a lot of sense. So the smooching comes before everything gets catastrophic, and there is a lot going on. We're also getting a lot of flashbacks this episode. I knew it was going to happen. A lot of people were complaining that with everything that's happening between Rogue and Magneto, it doesn't make sense because we didn't know the story. And I was saying, you know, I think we're going to get that filler. And we did get that filler. However, it did make it weirder. Now, granted, we have to keep in mind that in the comics, okay? In the comics, it's a little less weird between Magneto and Rogue because Magneto basically gets turned into a baby and, like, kind of gets put to, like, an ideal age. So he isn't old, really, when him and Rogue are together. He's always kind of had, like, silver hair. That's just Magneto. He's always had this white hair. But in this, there's none of that is established. So Rogue is like, I literally ran away from home and then I was like taken to Magneto and we're like, wait, how old is Rogue here? And I had to explain to my friend Erica, who I was watching it with, just how it's not weird because of the comics. But also I understand if you're not like deep into that lore, you don't know about the whole Magneto getting turned into a baby thing that happened. This feels pretty weird. They made it weirder somehow. Yeah. Sasha was also texting me about this from Casually Comics and she was like, how did they make that weirder? And I was like, I don't know. I feel like they weren't thinking about this. But yes, let me know if you didn't think it was weird. But yeah. But you know what? It's fine because it's in the past. And what ends up happening is Rogue has a confession to Gambit. And then Gambit is just basically super great and is very accepting of Rogue's choice, even though it's breaking his heart, the poor man. But he accepts, like, we can just be friends. And then in the end, Rogue realizes that, yes, their love is more than skin deep. Also, that whole conversation, there's so many bits of it that are so quotable and just so, like, this is what true love is. Love is more than it being skin deep. It's about more than that. It's about the connection that they have. And also Nightcrawler calling that out. Also, everything Kurt says in this episode is a freaking quote. You could put everything Kurt says in here on a t-shirt. You know what I mean? I want to wear it all. I want it, like, framed somewhere. It is classic Kurt. So well written. This episode is so well written. I really, really love it. But that's not all the smooching we get. I mean, there's stuff that's happening between Jean and Wolverine, which I'm going to be real with you guys. And I love Jean and Scott, don't get me wrong, but I also ship Jean and Wolverine. I ship both. I just feel like Scott sometimes does not treat Jean right. And Wolverine is always there for her, but he's always still like, no, it's okay. I know you want to be with Scott. And I'm like, Wolverine, no, just... I hate to say, like, chase this woman that's in a relationship, but chase this woman that's in a relationship. Because I feel like Wolverine does treat Jean better, and especially here and right now. Especially because we find out that Scott is actually having a psychic affair with Maddie, which is such a fun subversion on the comic storyline where Scott is having a psychic affair with Emma, who makes herself look like Jean in the Vision because he's felt distant from his wife. This is, like, even better than the comics. And, I mean, I also love that story, too, so, like, nothing against it. But how did they make that story better? It just fits so well. It makes so much sense. And it's not Maddie pretending to be Jean. It's just basically Maddie being herself. And then Jean catches them together. And then the other thing that I love that they did with this is in the comics, it's very much a feud between Jean and Emma when that revelation comes about. And I really loved that the feud was really between Jean and Scott here, which honestly, rightfully so. Jean doesn't really blame Madelyne for this. She blames Scott for this and wants to hold him accountable and wants to know, like, what's going on with Scott. And I also love Scott's answers because they're honestly so truthful. Like, when she asks him, like, do you love her? He's like, I love you both. Which honestly is true because they're kind of the same person. We're also exploring a lot of, like, what does it mean to be a clone? And, like, where does the other person, like, begin and end? Like, are they the same person? How are they different? And I can't wait for us to hopefully explore more of that. Although considering that Maddie is probably dead, we'll get back to that, I assume. We'll get back to that point. I also am very glad that I'm wearing this shirt today because I would say I hate to say I told you so, but I really don't, because I was very excited that Krakoa was influencing this version of Genosha that we got. I mean, we got a council. It's an interim council, but clearly we're moving towards quiet council. We have Moira there. We have Sebastian Shaw there. We have Emma Frost there. We have Nightcrawler basically being like, you're, like, in charge of religious stuff. And I was like, all the things. Krakoa. We have Magneto there, obviously, who is instead here kind of being asked to be the king. A little bit different than, you know, the Quiet Council and their triumvirate that they kind of have, but still, a lot of inspiration I'm seeing being taken from Krakoa. We also have the Gala, which I guess I have to keep saying it Gala now. It feels weird, but yeah, the Gala, which I think is supposed to be taking some inspiration from the Hellfire Gala, although we also got in that newspaper the Hellfire Gala. I don't know if that's supposed to be maybe something that drifts in from the future, or if that's just a different thing that happened, but I'm curious to see if we're going to come back to that. I feel like there's a lot of seeds they planted in episode 1 and 2 that when we get to the end of this, we're going to be like, oh my gosh, this little thing that we thought didn't mean anything meant so much. Because it just seems like that's how well written this is going to be. And I love how they're distracting us with things so that later they can connect stuff back and we're going to be like, I remember that. I feel like a genius. I love when stories do that. I love when stories help me to feel smart. That's always good. So as we have this really cool setting for the gala, we also have the most like late 90s, early 2000s music that plays during this party, where Rogue and Magneto are flying and making out in front of everyone. Oh my gosh, this was such a drama fest too, this episode. There's so much drama and I'm here for the drama. It's my favorite X-Men thing, I think. Drama and crying. I'm always crying when I'm reading X-Men in the best way possible. And there's a lot of crying to be had here because, as I said, this is a story that seems to take very heavily in terms of inspiration from another story that we get in the comics called E Is For Extinction. E Is For Extinction is basically what happens to Genosha. So Genosha is this kind of mutant island nation. I don't think Genosha is ever recognized by the UN. That's what tipped me off to it probably being Krakoan inspired, because I think Krakoa is the only mutant nation to be acknowledged by the UN, but if I missed something in the comics, please feel free to let me know down in the comments. Obviously, I don't know everything, but based on the research I have, that's what I believe. And what ends up happening in Genosha is this Sentinel comes that is, yes, kind of like what we saw in the show here, looks pretty much a 1-for-1, and is sent in by Cassandra Nova, who takes control of, I believe it's Donald Trask, and sends in this Sentinel and destroys all of the mutants. And we get a few pages of this happening that is so heartbreaking. Those few pages just say so much. That's already so upsetting if you read that story. This was like that, but they had so much ammunition because it was basically 8 minutes of just destruction and death in animation. It was like they just went off. Both are deeply disturbing, but this was a lot. They loaded the cannons and I felt it. I don't know if the fact that this is heavily taking inspiration from E Is For Extinction, if this means that we're going to get Cassandra Nova at all. I think the fact is there's so many things that I don't know here. That's kind of what I like about it. I have some theories, but we'll get into those in a minute. Because I also wanted to mention there's some cool things you can spot in this episode. And if you miss them, here they are. If you look up in the night sky, you will see the Watcher, which could be a sign that this is connected to the MCU because we already have the Watcher in the MCU. Or it could just be a fun animation thing and it's a separate thing because, you know, this could be a different Watcher in a different universe. I don't know. It's the multiverse. Anything is possible. But I would like to say I would love it if it was tied into the MCU in some way. I think that'd be really cool. And I would be here for it. I also feel like if you are looking around, you may have noticed someone that we've been talking a lot about on this channel in regards to X-Men 97. You may have noticed showrunner Beau DeMayo, who is in the audience and is at the gala. You can see him in there, and I just loved that. It's also a kind of Hellfire Gala reference, because if you've read the Hellfire Galas, a lot of the times there are celebrities in the crowds that it's my favorite thing to read and just look through the crowds at everyone's outfits that are X-Men, but also see which celebrities you can see in the audience. Kevin Feige famously is also been there as well at the Hellfire Gala in the comics. And of course, what would a complete obliteration of all this mutants be without a time travel plot to hopefully come in and, do a little bit of Deus Ex Machina where we can save the day, I think is what will happen. However, that being said, I don't think that means this plot and all these beats and all this loss will be for nothing, because I think there will be a cost. I just think this writing is so smart. There's no way that there's not going to be a huge cost to us saving people and getting people back. And I think it's really going to change what comes next. So I'm totally cool with time travel plots as long as there is some meaning that is carried forward. And I think that's what we're going to be getting here. So I'm into it. I like it. So yeah, Cable does show up. And of course, just as things are about to go off, he's like, oh no, not again. And he body slides, time slides right out of there. And he doesn't seem to want to. And however, he does get to have a really nice moment reconnecting with his mom, Maddie. And I loved it. It was so sweet. And then Maddie maybe gets obliterated. I don't know. That seems to be what happened. However, yeah, time travel. So probably everyone will be fine in the end, I hope, by the end of the season, or maybe by the beginning of season 2. That begs the question, where are we going from here? Where are we going next? I honestly don't know. And I love it. We could be going to Cassandra Nova. I could see Mumadrai playing into this in some way and that being part of it. I don't know. I'm getting Shadow King vibes, but I don't even have any evidence for you guys. It's just a vibe that I'm getting. So please take this with a very big grain of salt because it's based on nothing. Just something I have in the pit of my stomach. So it's probably incorrect, but it could be a thing. And some people have been talking about, could this lead us to resurrection protocols online? And I definitely think there could be some version of that here. I don't know if there's going to be anything with Moira and her being a mutant or not. Probably not. I mean, she does die here. I don't know. Or it could have something to do with Phoenix, we've seen in the intro. Phoenix could be the person that brings everyone back. But also it kind of looks like Dark Phoenix. So what's that about? I don't know. It could also just be a relation back to previous stuff that's happened in the 90s animated series. I'm still catching up. So yeah, I'm going back and rewatching all of it. And it's taking me longer than I expected. There are many things to watch right now. It's a good time. Overall, I think the pacing of this episode was a lot better. I think overall, I really just love this episode in general. I think what I liked about it is that it's kind of focused on one direct plot line, and then there's other stuff that's happening around it that feeds into it. So it just felt a lot more succinct. It felt like it was on like one clear path. And definitely feels like we got a nice chiropractic adjustment from the last episode in terms of the pacing. Although, like I said, I still really liked the last episode. It just felt like it was doing too much. And this is doing a lot, but doing it in a way where it feels like everything is nicely interwoven and connected. So, good job, episode. I think I have to give this one a 10 out of 10. Honestly, it was perfect. It honestly was. And I also feel like, get ready, because Beau DeMayo has returned. If you haven't seen his Instagram, everything sort of came back on there, which is great. Love to see it. Still, we haven't had any statements. I'll let you know if we get any statements. I'll do a whole video on it, I'm sure, if we get anything in terms of what happened between Beau DeMayo and Disney and Marvel and why they split. But Beau DeMayo has at least been interacting and commenting on the show and acknowledging, I think, some of the love. And Beau DeMayo did say episode 5 was just our warm-up. Episodes 8 through 10 is my big one. Winky face. So, I mean, what does that mean? That means that apparently, as crazy and as high stakes as this episode felt, the stakes are getting raised even more. And I am so here for it. I am so excited. I can't contain it. I'm trying to not shout. My camera's losing focus. That's all I have to say about this one, friends. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. I'll see you next time. And until then, stay nerdy.